Good afternoon, Accounting Weekly listeners. Welcome to another podcast hosted by myself, Nicholas van Wyk. I'm the editor for Accounting Weekly and also the CEO of SIBA. SIBA is the Chartered Institute for Business Accountants. We've been around since 1987. The 80s was a very interesting period in the accounting profession. Most of the bodies that we see today started kind of around about in the 80s. It was with the advent of the Closed Corporation Act, which to me was still the best corporate legislation ever. And it provided for a new report provider, the accounting officer, uh, was the first one following the auditors. And then many years later, there was a New Companies Act which introduced another report provider, the independent reviewer. CIPC added agents on the website doing company secretarial work. And in 2015, South Africa saw the introduction of tax practitioners in the Tax Administration Act. So it's quite a vibrant community that we have in South Africa. Quite sophisticated, I must say, if you compare us with some other countries in the wide variety of report providers that we have. Our legislation, regulations, codes provide for compilers, factual finders, or agreed upon procedures, reviews, auditing, tax practitioners. And then there's a host of other legislation requiring a business rescue practitioner, for example, home affairs accountant, somebody to do the CIDB verifications or applications, lotteries board. So it's quite a vibrant community. And today it's my pleasure to introduce you to Mark Silberman, our next podcast a person that we're going to interview. I'm sure many of you know Mark. He's been with us in the profession for many, many years. I'm sure longer than me, I hope. And he is the owner of Accfin. I see on his podcast, on his LinkedIn profile, he's quite the regular poster. So if anybody wants to learn more about accounting software and what's developing and happening, please go to Mark Silberman on LinkedIn and follow him on his posts. And what made me want to speak with Mark was a recent post that he made about changes within software providers and the ending of certain provisions of products and how that would, or functionality, and how that would affect the profession. And yeah, as Accounting Weekly focuses on news within the profession, so you can go to our website or our LinkedIn, accountingweekly.com. It's a publication of SIBA, and we want to give insightful news, so it's very hands-on articles. It's not just news. For example, if there's a case quite recently of Capitec Bank and SARS, or SASFIN and SARS, and then there's case law, so we try and apply that to accountants in practice and tax practitioners, and give guidance and template letters and things like that. So it's kind of useful, practical news that we provide, as well as some trending news. So you're most welcome to go to Accounting Weekly for your your accounting hit that you need daily. So that is my introduction. Now I want to welcome Mark. It's going to be a wide-ranging discussion. I'd love to hear from Mark how he started in the profession, how he started to develop his software. I see in his profile he says he's into accounting practice office automation. And I'm sure with the advent of AI, there's so much new developments that we all want to hear about. So I'm handing over to Mark.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this streaming. Thank you, Nicholas, for giving me the opportunity. So I'll answer some of your questions. I've been in the profession for over 30 years. I qualified as a chartered accountant many years ago. And I became a partner in an accounting firm. And in those days, we were all manual. Remember the days when you had to do a trial balance, make it balance, and then you had to convert that trial balance into a set of financials, and then you would take it to the partner who would go to the client, and they'd come back with a couple of pages of journal adjustments, and then you'd have to work. And I remember I did some research And we found that maybe about a third to half the time was spent on putting through adjustments and getting to the financials. And then along came a system where we could type in a trial balance, and it wasn't even, DOS wasn't even around in those days. And we programmed the system to convert the financials, the trial balance into the financials. And the research indicated that we were saving between 30% to 50% of the time. And I remember I wrote an article, and in those days I tried to get it published in the Chartered Accountant, it was the cycle one, and they rejected it because they thought I was talking rubbish. But at the end of the day, it was true, and we were making incredible advances in the way we were running our practice. And being a smaller practice, tax was a big issue, and we had a very big practice. And so what I did, I employed a programmer, and we wrote a system. That was the first system in South Africa. It was a DOS application. I don't know if any of you remember those days. And then we decided somebody came in, had a look at it, said, I want to buy it. So we sold it. And then we decided to launch it countrywide, and it took off in a big way. And basically, that's how it started. Eventually, the company grew. We went into some accounting, we went into payroll, but our main focus was always software for the accounting profession. And people started to buy our software, and then came the competitors, and they copied us because we were first. So what I can tell you, we were first with a tax product. We were the first to e-file straight into SARS. That started in about 2008. And we produced a company secretarial product. And I remember my first DEM, I had to, even before the days of laptop, I took a desktop into the office. I took a laser printer, and I did the equivalent of a CRR 39, the change of directorships, printed the form, gave it to the partners, and their mouths dropped. They couldn't believe that I was able to do it, because in those days they used to do it with a typewriter. And the interesting thing is, eventually that firm decided to buy the software. How long did it take? 10 years before they bought the software. And then Accfin started to grow, and we were the market leader, and then other players started to come into and start selling their products. So the one thing that Nicholas said, he said he liked the CC, right? I also like the CC, and there are also lots of CCs. In 2011, when they converted to the New Companies Act, CCs outnumbered companies 8-1. Can you believe it? It was easy. And I remember in those days, I used to tell the clients, go and form a lot of CCs, because they're going to be very valuable. And the CIPC said that it'll take about 10 years to convert all the CCs, but they haven't done it yet. And they're not going to do it because, as we know, there are problems. Okay, so any questions so far? Anyone want to ask me questions? I don't see questions.
Yeah, that's a
Nicholas?
very interesting history, and it provides context, as you were discussing, and you and I have been in the profession for now a number of years, and it's good to have these kind of conversations and go back in history, I think, because it explains so much about the structure of the profession and the future developments. And I'm sure now, since you started Accfin, you've added new project types of products and features. Give us an overview about Accfin and what it
Okay.
specializes in.
we now specialize in selling systems to the accounting firms. It's our main focus. And we specialize in tax. We believe that we are the most proactive company, that when there's a change in tax, we always seem to be first to get it out. I do a lot of webinars on the products, and we also a learning company. We consist of about 22 people today, and I've given over the CEO ship, if I may say that, to my partner Sini, who is a lot younger than me, and he's the software brains. He's the architect of our product called Sky, and we've made I believe, you don't have to believe me, but you can ask around in the marketplace. We definitely have the best tax system. We file tax returns. I have a user who, when the season opens, can file 100 tax returns by himself in 2 days. And we have big firms who use our software. And then we also published a company secretarial product. It's a bit unfortunate that for 20 years now, we've been trying to talk to the CIPC about filing directly into their systems, but unfortunately, they haven't given us that opportunity. And if you read the press, I'm not saying this, there are lots of issues with their systems. We're now into the beneficial ownership stage. We're the only company that can produce an organogram by drilling down into the shareholders, unlimited drill downs until we get to the final BO, the ultimate, the individual. So there could be trusts that have shares within the company, other companies, we do all of that. And you're welcome to go and have a look at on our website the videos of that. And then we also, to add to the components, we've got a time and billing system. So when somebody's processing their provisional tax and they're finished, they can generate 1,000 invoices in a couple of minutes. So we have also a full management type data system that will allow practitioners to collect their debts. And you know, the kind of things that we built into our software that differentiate. We've got an integrated digital signature. We use a company called Signiflow. And so when an accountant processes provisional tax and he sends out 1,000 letters, the clients can sign. And once they sign the confirmation documentation, the document flows back into the system, the signed document, and is stored in a documents tab next to the provisional tax. And that's a fantastic risk aversion kind of feature. So we into trying to allow our clients to be risk averse. We also have a thing like you can SMS out of the system. And that's a great way to remind practitioners. So we have all these wonderful features. We've concentrated on making our software simple to use. We use a one-screen approach. But let me get on to some interesting news. So practitioners, you're now being approached by your clients who are PBOs, public benefit organizations, and they have to upload all their donations into SARS because SARS is going to take that data and pre-populate tax returns. And the problem is that everyone has left it too late. And there's no software that can file that stuff. You know, there are PBOs who have thousands of donors. How are they going to get that information in it? you're going to do it manually, it's impossible. So because we programmed the uploads of the trust distributions IT3T, we released that. We had the launch in March, and people can upload the distributions. We've got the technology to do the donation. So we decided we're going to do it. We're going to have a piece of software next week, and we're going to give it away for free. This will be our giving back because PBOs don't have money to pay for the software. And we would expect any accountant who wants to use it we'll have a whole system for setting it up, is welcome to use it. And we would ask them that they don't charge the PBO, they do it for free. And that is something very interesting. And
Tell
if
me on
uh,
the PBO. So I'm very interested, obviously, now in what you've been saying. Our members will love it. We have about 10,000 members, and we actually have as a CIBA, the Chartered Institute of Business Accountants. We have an MOU with the Department of Social Development, and we managed over the years to. The purpose of the MOU is to provide volunteer services to the non-profit sector. There's about 200,000 to 250,000 of them are registered, but more than 100,000 are non-compliant. They're not filing their annual returns. It's similar to the CIPC filings, but they're not doing it. So 2,000 of the members volunteered, and we are assisting the DSD with upping the compliance. But yeah, that's what you mentioned now is quite significant. Um, I think it relates to the business, to the beneficial ownership requirements and grey listing that SARS wants now to see where the money flow is coming from and being used by non-profit or PBOs because they have this tax exempt status. Um, but I think, like you said, as accountants, we're deadline driven, and even if the deadline hasn't passed, we're not going to address it. And it is now very late in the day. So I think it's quite amazing that Accfin has actually developed this product and that you're making it
well,
available for free.
we're not quite there. We'll have it next week. We've got all the components to make it. So the way that it's going to work is that a PBO will use their accounting system, whichever one it is. They'll input the receipts, and then they would need to export to a spreadsheet. And we've already got the template for the spreadsheet. Then we'll take that spreadsheet, and a tax practitioner has to register that PBO on their SARS e-filing profile, and then they will pull up that spreadsheet and generate the necessary data that will move into SARS. Now, one of the, you spoke about the grey listing. It's not only about the grade listing, it's also about the fraud that's being committed. So people who get an 18A certificate and they can get fake ones and then they claim it on their tax return. So SARS, what they want to do is pre-populate the tax return with those donations. So if it's not pre-populated, then the taxpayer is not going to get the benefit of the deduction. So your army of accountants, here's an opportunity for them to learn something and to help PBOs, because if PBOs, the people who donate, can't get the deduction on their tax return, that is going to be a problem for the whole PBO industry.
Accfin, you have this wide variety of products from tax to secretarial to practice management and now also in the PBO arena. Um, what type of accountant would be ideal as a client for Accfin? Who would be interested? Is it only for medium and large, or do you have a
No,
scaled approach?
no, it's any accounting firm that that specialize, that does tax. So, if you look at an accounting firm or even we have sole practitioners. If you look at an accounting firm and they have 50 to 100 taxpayers, then the chances are that firm is what I call tax centric. Everything revolves around tax. It would be the shareholders' tax return, it would be the company's tax return, it would be the director's tax returns. And everything has got to tie up. So if you're doing a company, you've got to make sure that the individual's tax return shows the right income that comes from the company, that the loan accounts agree, and that's the kind of work. And then you submit it, and then you've got to deal with the verifications. And you will have noted that SARS has put out a whole lot of messages, and they want more money. The problem in South Africa is there are probably 7 million individual taxpayers who support another 24 million who are unemployed, and that's a huge problem. And SARS really needs to collect, otherwise, we as a country, we're not going to survive. So it's a problem.
We've seen it with
So,
the amount of questions that SARS is now asking on verifications. It's much more in depth, it's much more wider than it previously was, and we definitely see an increase in workload. So, linking up with a program such as yours, I can clearly see the benefit for a tax practitioner.
well, let me just,
Mhm.
sorry, carry on.
No, you can complete. I just want to have a follow-up question on your company secretarial services.
Okay,
If that
let
is
me
also
just tell
applicable
you
for the entry level accountant.
what happens with tax. So the practitioner would have a database of all his clients and has the ability on the software to file an RT12, an RT12 trust. So we do the trust tax returns. We do the trust distributions that you have to now do by the end of September. We do the company tax returns, and we've even started to do VAT, VAT returns. They file it through our system. There's a whole process. Uh, you first of all retrieve the data from SARS. So whatever's on the SARS side comes down into the system. Then you just add the things that are not there. On individuals, we do the a balance sheet for the individual, which works out the living expenses. We call it a capital reconciliation. And that's a risk aversion check, because if the guy is earning a lot of money and the capital recon only shows that he's earning 300, then there's something wrong. Or if it goes into negative, and that's a really good check. And then you file it, and we go through a whole process of filing. And then when SARS assesses it, the assessment comes down into the system, the verification letters come down into the system, and the practitioner doesn't have to go onto e-filing. They just click on a view button and opens the document. So there's a huge amount of time that's saved on tax.
Now, it
And
doesn't seem
you,
to me that any accountant can work with, or tax practitioner can work without a system. We kind of on a drive on accountingweekly.com. Recently, we've published so many articles about due diligence to protect. So the accountants will really have to up the work method. You have to really interrogate the client, the information being presented to you. So it's not just about collecting the data and presenting them to SARS. It's actually applying your mind about whether this information that's in front of you is verifiable. We also saw this now with the amendment of the one of the anti-corruption bills. We did an article on that. Uh, that's signed by President Ramaphosa last week. If you don't have procedures in place within your accounting practice, for example, that can prevent corruption, and this will also relate to your clients, and then your company can be held criminally liable, or you can be held criminally liable because you didn't have enough measures in place to prevent corruption. And we see that SARS is applying this in that SASFIN case, where they say SASFIN didn't do enough to prevent money laundering from happening via its systems. And they're trying to get that via vicarious liability. So you're definitely right. There's a big push on SARS on tax collection, and you need a proper system like yourselves to keep up to date and be able to defend yourself.
Yeah. And we've also, because our software, we'll talk about the secretarial now, our software is totally integrated. It can be one application and people can sign on for the different modules. So we've also added a Sky FIC. We call it Sky FIC because a lot of the firms that who are our customers are in fact accountable institutions and they have to register with a FIC. Okay. So we use all that data so they can do the necessary compliance and produce the documentation to make sure that all their clients are FICA compliance. Just
That's
by the
wonderful.
way,
Mm,
yeah, the same. So we share all the data. So if you
mm,
change an address, it changes, it's one
yeah.
file that
Sure.
updates everything.
And that report that an accountable institution has to submit annually to the FIC, the Financial Intelligence Center, is quite comprehensive. So it's going to take a lot
Yeah,
of time if you don't have a system. We've been
we've
dealing
got
with
it.
the FIC,
We've got it.
and with this expansion, there was kind of a difference of not a difference, but it wasn't clear the interpretation about who is now this accountable institution. SIBA provided a guide for its members. It's available on our website. Um, and it's very clear that if you assist clients with company secretarial work, you have to register as an accountable institution. So there's a lot more focus. And I read a post that you made, uh, which said, I'm very interested now. The regulation or the professionalization of company secretarial work. And I think there was you started or planted the seed for the establishment of a professional body for company secretaries, which I think is quite unique, and would love to get involved in that. But
Well,
it's quite necessary, like the FIC requirements, and this whole thing of beneficial ownership. Talk to me a little bit about your company secretarial package, and if that is also available for small, medium, and large practitioners.
yeah, anyone who needs to do company secretarial work, it's available. We sell it based on numbers. Now, there's something that users need to understand, and they don't understand it. We sell our system with an unlimited user license. We base it on the number of taxpayers or companies or something like that. So if you're in a slightly larger organization and you've got 15 or 20 people, but you've only got 3 or 4 people in the tax office or the company secretarial office, the whole firm can use it because when they're doing the books and reconciling the tax and doing a company secretarial audit, they will have access to the system and they can see all the records. And that's a very important factor. We're the only company that does that. No, but it's very hard to explain because if you have a guy sitting in the Platteland and he's working there and he needs to see files, it's online if he's got an internet connection. Otherwise, he's got to get into his car, drive to the office, go to the secretarial department and get it. And what we found is that with some firms, that efficiency has really made a difference. So now I'll tell you about, because I'm dealing with company secretarial people in accounting firms. There's a group of people who do secretarial work who are not recognized. They don't have a qualification. They don't have a BCom. They don't have a CA. They work below the partners, and generally, as a rule, they know more than the partners do. And they're the forgotten people. Maybe you can call them the missing middle. But some of these people have been around for a long, long time. And there are bodies that deal for qualified people, and they run very hard, intensive courses. And we're not going to do that. We're just going to do the basics. And after speaking to a lot of firms that I come into contact with, we decided to form this group. And we currently have a WhatsApp group where people can log on. There's no cost to joining this organization. We're in the early stages. You can see what's going on with the CIPC. We've also started a forum where we publish articles about how to do certain things. But the most interesting thing about the WhatsApp group is that the problems that are encountered. Home affairs is down, home affairs is up. One-time passwords don't work. Trying to upload a BO, can't do it. And so we formed this group. It's slow because all the people involved are working full-time, including myself. And a website is coming on stream. We're going to formalize the sign-on. We're not charging for it. So it's perhaps if we start to incur costs, like we start to get professional trainers in, then perhaps we've got to do something about that. But in the meantime, we work with this body is growing. We've got nearly 500 people who've signed on. And one of the things that we want to do, we've tried to communicate with management at the CIPC, but it doesn't work because they don't respond to anything. I can write a book on how we've been kind of left behind. So the question arises at the end of May, now, next month, all beneficial ownership uh, forms and uploads and documents have to be done for the country. It's not going to happen. I would say we're below 50%, well below. And the problem is that many bigger firms haven't even started because, number one, they don't have the resource. They're more tax centric and they're dealing with the tax problems. And along comes the CIPC threatening uh, to give penalties if you're not on time. But it's not possible. So we're going to try and do something about that. I'm going to try and get to see the minister or write. I'm not sure that anyone's going to take any notice.
We
Perhaps
can,
your
yeah, we must definitely work on it. We're on that stakeholder relationship group with the CIPC um, and SIBA, the Chartered Institute, and yeah, our engagement with the CIPC was always very open, and it seems to me that they do respond very quickly. But I just want to get your feeling about, and I totally support that there should be an additional professional body within the company secretarial space. If you, we in the accounting, mainly accounting and tax, and there's 5 professional bodies, or even more, maybe closer to 10, from the ACCA, the CMAS, the SIPAS, the SICAS, the CBAS, the IACs, who's there else? There's a number. And what it does, it creates such a good competition amongst the bodies that um, we monitor each other services, and then your delivery to your clients must be so well oiled, and you have to constantly improve. Otherwise, the members has this choice; they can go to any of these professional bodies. So I'm a big supporter of multiple professional bodies per sector. We registered with the SAQA. SIBA is a recognized professional body with the South African Qualifications Authority, and our designations are recognized on their platform. And we annually get audited by SAQA, like all the other bodies, and they check whether you're following your procedures so that there's quality within your designation. So it's a good process to go through because it also keeps your own quality up to scratch. But there are in the space of the professional body sector bodies that feel that there should be, SAQA should say that there should only be one professional body per economic sector. But I don't see that happening. It's like, why do we South Africa have so many banks? Because then you can argue there should only be one bank. But there's multiple ones that compete. The same with the motor vehicle manufacturers. There's multiple manufacturers, and the same with professional services. So um, I think there's a definite need for that. Like you said, um, at the entry level, I think you described it perfectly. And as SIBA, we would be very interested to work with you on helping you establishing that. And a lot of our members are involved in it. And if there's better support for them, yeah, we'll really welcome that.
Yeah, none of the institutes or the bodies really deal with this situation because they don't have time. Everybody's focused on tax and accounting and standards and that kind of stuff. So we formed this body, and the first thing that happened, there is another body. I'm not going to mention their name. We got challenged legally. Everything that you do in South Africa, you get a lawyer's letter, and they concerned that we're going to eat into their membership and their database, but it's not going to happen because they more higher level qualified company secretaries of listed companies, and we're not in that area. Okay, so that's where we are. We're struggling a little bit because what everybody has to do is get all their compliance sorted out, and we're busy. And I might just mention there is a company that's discontinued their tax and secretarial products. That's Caseware. They sent out an email to all their users, and there's been a flood of inquiries that we can barely cope with. So, and there's some issues there, and there's some legal issues, and all. Nothing ever happens easily in South Africa. It's
I think it's
always,
an indicator that you're doing the right thing if you get some resistance. If you didn't get resistance, it means you're not on the right path. So, no, just keep on going. Um,
yeah, no, we are keeping on going, and you know, if people, I'm not going to talk about it here, but they're welcome to review my posts on LinkedIn where I actually say it like it is. And I guess in my older age, I've become more of an activist. I'm not a political activist. I'm an activist in terms of service delivery. And that's a problem in South Africa where, we must point out where things are not working. And if we've got to roll up our sleeves and help, what you're doing in the accounting world, getting this army of accountants to help out in certain areas is absolutely fantastic. It's fantastic. And if the need arises, I'm happy to do, when the PBO is launched, I'm happy to do a webinar and show people how that works because I think it's going to be a problem. And I don't believe that the PBO industry are going to actually make the deadline.
yeah, you're making a good point, and I think that is the saving grace of technology. Is the only way that you can keep up with the regulations. So part of the podcast, we'll also be interviewing regulators, and the idea is to just make each party aware of the challenges that each sector is experiencing. Because I'm sure regulators are struggling with practitioners not filing correctly, filing yeah, with incorrect information, not verifying the clients before they file, um, and just doing the wrong things or not understanding the act. So there's, they also have a difficult time, regulators. And then on the other hand, practitioners not getting the right support. Our members are really struggling with the e-filing system and how SARS are treating tax practitioners. So we hope through Accounting Weekly we can connect these two parties and just make each party aware of their various challenges so that we can have a better system. Because if, and I really, really deeply believe this, that if we have an efficient system and coordination amongst various stakeholders, we can make an impact on GDP. And if we can increase GDP because we're efficient, we'll get more employment and more growth. Mark, I want to thank you very much for participation. Any final comments for our audience before we close? It seems that we might have just had a drop off there in technology. I just want to thank Mark. It was amazing and wonderful to engage with another colleague that's been leaving deep marks within the profession for many, many years. And it seems that that product of his, Accfin, will be quite useful for all types of accountants. Thank you very much, Mark, for participating.
Thank you very much, and everybody go well.
What do our defining moments look like? Just like this moment right now. They look like pride after achieving that long sought-after goal. All the small victories along the way that didn't feel momentous until we saw them in the rearview mirror. They look like the courage it takes to take that first big step. All the times we fail and rise again. And without even knowing it, cultivating an inner strength that is contagious along the way. They look like the inspiration that comes from knowing that we are not alone. They look like the human relationships that give us wisdom beyond what data ever could. They look like the curiosity that comes from exploring, that allow us to create and contribute. They look like education that unlocks our full potential, using our knowledge for impact. They look like choosing our own definition of success, over hiding, over hustling, over pretending. They look like others showing up and recognizing our efforts after all the times we already showed up for ourselves. They look like being bold enough to be extraordinary. They look like you. Right now, right here. First, we help you see your defining moments. Then we help you seize them. We are the accounting body for everyone. We are the accounting body for you.